Welcome to the Transform podcast series, co-produced by the International Labour Organization and socialprotection.org. My name is Abidemi Coker, a consultant passionate about supporting government, civil society, and partners in strengthening our social protection systems in Africa. I will be your host for this 3-episode series, bringing you highlights about Transform, an initiative that is growing across Africa. Transform is a training program that supports efforts of practitioners and leaders to build social protection floors in Africa. In this podcast series, we will present the initiative's achievements 10 years since its inception. We will have conversations with guests from the continent to present the genesis of Transform as an initiative facilitated by multiple international agencies and actors. We will explore how Transform has evolved and impacted the social protection culture in the region, and how it is being institutionalized in several countries. In this episode, the third and last of the Transform podcast series, we will learn about how Malawi and Nigeria are progressing with institutionalizing the Transform training program. Today's episode contains interviews from leaders in the institutionalization journey. I had a conversation with Patience Matandiko, a social protection technical officer with the ILO based in Malawi, and Emmanuel Danjuma, the National Project Coordinator of the European Union-funded project on supporting sustainable social protection in Nigeria. We then go even more in depth with Thokozani Ntapaonga on how academic institutions are central to institutionalization in Malawi. For our testimonial segment, I interviewed the Transform Advisory Group chairperson, Samuel Kapingiza, to understand why Transform leadership is promoting institutionalization of the training initiative on the continent. Let's start our country examples from Malawi and Nigeria. Enjoy listening. Welcome, Patience and Emmanuel, to the Transform podcast series.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm quite excited to speak to you two today. I have heard great stories about the work that you're doing. Patience, I know you work with Thokozani in Malawi, and Emmanuel, you're in Nigeria. So what fun to bring the two sides of this continent together. Today, we get to hear about how these two countries are taking Transform into the future in which Transform is institutionalized across the African continent. So I'd love to begin with Malawi, where we know that Transform is doing great work together with the government and other institutions. Patience, you've been working in Malawi for several years now. And as a side note, I must say that we miss you in Zambia, but we're happy that you're just around the corner and hope to see you a little bit more in the future. But from your perspective, what is driving institutionalization in Malawi? How did you get to this point?
Thank you so much, Abidemi, for this opportunity to just share the Malawi story, especially regarding the Transform journey. I'd like to begin by saying that really this journey has been very inspiring, both for the ILO and for all the partners that have been involved in the implementation of Transform. And with this said, let me begin by giving credit to government, because I think one of the elements that has really been instrumental in leading the Transform institutionalization journey in Malawi is the fact that we have seen quite a lot of government ownership and involvement, starting from the point of introduction of the Transform. And if you may allow me, let me just quickly say that the Transform journey began by even just conducting sensitization, meetings with the respective and relevant government institutions, including the ministry that has a mandate for social protection, the ministry that is implementing and coordinating the social assistance programs, just to ensure that all the respective stakeholders are brought on board and are fully involved in the implementation of Transform. And with that said, we also have seen quite a lot of involvement, a case in point. What also has really, brought concretely the relevance of Transform is the fact that government identified a clear need for capacity building. And we all know that capacity building is not cheap. What that meant is that we needed to start thinking about what are the processes and what are the modalities that we can use to sustain the capacity building intervention, of which Transform was really bringing quite an innovative approach in ensuring that government stakeholders and all the practitioners in social protection are capacitated to begin to understand what it really means to create a comprehensive social protection system, while at the same time ensuring that this capacity building is built within the context and response to the context of Malawi. We have also had very good partnerships with other development partners that have a stake and are interested in social protection. And I'm pleased to report on behalf of the team that in Malawi, Transform has been applied in all the 28 districts. And based on that, we have seen that that provided us a good platform for institutionalizing Transform, because we also note that the need for capacity building still continues. And not to preempt, just to say that we are currently also supported the training of master trainers from the college, Magomero College, to help us build a cohort of Transform trainers within Malawi, national trainers, that we see as a very strategic arm in terms of institutionalizing Transform in Malawi. This is the same resource that we are using to support the institutionalization of Transform through the development of a diploma curriculum on social protection under the Magomero College and under the Ministry of Community Development, and also under the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, specifically under the Division of the Poverty Reduction and Social Protection, which has a mandate on capacity building of social protection, including implementation of a social protection policy.
Wow, you really raised quite many things. One I picked up at the very end there around the structure of social protection institutions in Malawi. I didn't actually know that within the Ministry of Finance sits a unit responsible as well for social protection. I'd love to hear more about that as soon as possible, please. But I wanted to also check in with Emmanuel, because clearly we're seeing that there is something big happening around sort of broad-based training people across the country, possibly. And so I'm curious to hear about the TOT that has taken place in Nigeria, where we have now created a cohort of Transform trainers. Who are you targeting to train through the TOT? And are you going to go Niger style, as we say? Do you go big or do you go home?
Okay, all right. So thank you for this opportunity. The project has 4 result area or output, if you want to consider that, which we're looking towards. The first output is looking at National Social Registry, strengthening and functionality, while the second is looking at capacity building for policymakers and implementers of social protection. And then the third is looking at the legal frameworks around social protection. And then the fourth result is looking at enhancing management information system. So when you look at these 4 broad areas, the second sits around Transform, which is around building capacity for social protection policymakers and implementers. Now, it's very important that those who implement social protection, they're having the skills. It's within the mandate of government to implement social protection. And so government is having institutions in the country that are responsible for implementing social protection. In Nigeria, is a 3-tier government. We have the federal government, otherwise called the national government. We have the state government. We also have the local government. So we have structures that are called social protection institutions, and they're responsible in coordinating, providing guidance around implementing social protection, and then they are the policymakers, right? Others support them, work closely with them. So it's very important that for any intervention around capacity building should be situated around those that have the mandate. That's why we in Nigeria targeted, number one, the government, who are very key. But in doing that, we also had to give opportunity for what ILO we call the social partners. Social partners, they are basically the workers' organizations and then the employers' organizations, because they are very critical, they are key, right? And then next, also give a consideration for civil society organizations, because, they are non-state actors. They are responsible in providing additional voice and then holding government to account. In providing accountability, they also need to demonstrate that skills to their members and then to everyone that needs to have that skill set around Transform. So in achieving the second result, which is capacity building for policymakers and implementers, we had to utilize the methodology of Transform, because we know it's an ILO initiative. It has worked in other countries, and especially in Africa. And then we thought that the project entirely is looking at strengthening social protection system in Nigeria. You cannot talk about strengthening a system without understanding what is it about that aspect, which is social protection. And then you know that Nigeria is a very big country. So for us, we needed to ensure that we have those who we consider as master trainers. So we had 25 persons who we trained at the level of what we call training of trainers. It was for 8 days. We did that. And then secondly, we consider policymakers at the national level and especially across the 4 states where the project is being implemented. I mean, I forgot to say that the project is implemented, one at the national level. And then we have focal states. One is Abia State. We have 2 Benue states. We also have 3 Oyo states. And then last but not the least, Sokoto State. Now, we did not determine who to participate in the training. We worked through what we call the technical working group across these 4 states. And so it's within the decision of the technical working group to say that, okay, so this is the person to attend. And so for each of these states, they were to provide 3 persons. One of the 3 must be female. And so the technical working group would determine who to attend. We had those who came from the academia. We had those who are mostly from the government institutions who implement social protection. And then we have the civil society. Now, at the national level, we had some of the officials from the government institutions who are providing leadership around social protection, especially the social insurance angle. And then we also had the government who are also providing coordination when they are talking about social protection, especially from the contributory aspect. And the whole essence of what we had to do this is looking beyond the now, talking about sustainability to ensure that when there's a skill set that sits within the government, it therefore means that it can be translated beyond the now, talking about sustainability. So beyond now is to do what we call another level of step down at the state level where this project is being implemented. So what we're looking at is to say that in Nigeria, we should have at least 100 persons that would have been trained, in this first instance on transform methodology. So that's where we are at the moment.
So you're targeting 100 people across the 4 states to be trained on transform. And are they going to be implementers or are they policymakers at the state level, or, who are they and why are you training them?
So in this instance, going back to the states where the project is being implemented, our target are those who are implementing social protection because their skill set is very, very important. And don't also forget that these are mostly government officials who have the technical skills, and then their role is mostly technical. For example, Oyo State has 33 local government. Benue State has 23 local government. Sokoto State has 23 local government. Abia State has 17 local government. So when drawing out persons that should be trained, we're considering people that come from the different local government. We are deliberate in targeting. They should come from the government social protection institutions because it's critical for sustainability.
That's really interesting to hear the approach. It's really going at the government level, step by step. So first at the state level and then within the local governments who are responsible actually essentially for social protection services in the Nigerian system. That's really fascinating. And, we know that in these kind of processes, there's always a major effort towards collaboration. And we've talked about it in another episode of this podcast. So I'm curious to hear from patients what type of collaboration has been effective for you in terms of driving institutionalization in Malawi. But it's okay to reflect on the challenges as well.
Thank you so much, Abidemi. I think I already a bit started talking about some of the collaborations that have been established in Malawi regarding the journey that we are taking through the institutionalization process. And let me pinpoint one of them that has really been quite instrumental because this is the collaboration that actually helped us to really roll out the transform district trainings because GIZ is providing technical support to system strengthening, social protection system strengthening to a selected government district. And they saw transform as a very critical instrument and capacity building package to support with strengthening the technical expertise within the districts that they have been supporting. And with that collaboration, we actually developed, allow me to use like a project, a mini project within The collaboration that we've had, which was funded with direct financing from GIZ, specifically targeting those specific districts. And based on that, we are actually now discussing the mechanism for follow-up to go and support the implementation of the district action plan. You know that the mode of transform is after every training. It's a mandate for participants and a must that they should develop follow-up action plans that are very critical in assessing and following up on the implementation and application of the knowledge that they have acquired. The collaboration with government also has been very, very instrumental, because arising from also the learning that came out of Transform to say, can we identify specific needs for capacity within the government so that we create a comprehensive social protection system, but also to look at what are the specific needs that government practitioners would need to be capacitated on further. So through government and support from GIZ and UNICEF, government actually developed a capacity building plan. So this was basically a plan that was also inspired by the fact that there was the need for Transform also to be implemented in a way that it is responding to the specific needs. So that capacity building plan actually forms a framework through which we are collaborating, but it has also helped us to harmonize the capacity building support that we are giving to government. And it's through the same capacity building plan that we have agreed to work with UNICEF, including GIZ, to support in the development of, I talked about the diploma curricula arising from the Transform input, but also going beyond that, we are also supporting through the partnership with UNICEF as one of the collaboration, developing a degree on social protection that could be offered within the Malawi institutions. And the collaboration with Magomero also has been very, very instrumental, because it's a good case in point to show that it's possible to institutionalize a package that has been developed to respond to the regional needs for capacity building, contextualize it to a national level. And we really appreciate the collaboration and the leadership that has been coming from the Community Development College, which has already been offering a certificate course on integrated social protection. So the building in of Transform is to help them, offering a higher qualification at a diploma level.
That's really fascinating. And I know that Malawi has been on a bit of a journey. It's taken several years to get here. So I'm wondering, for Emmanuel and for Nigeria, where the project is, I believe, kind of just kickstarting, at which point are you in this journey?
Okay, so I'm happy to say that, because the project was able to do like what I call a capacity need and gap assessment to understand where the social protection practitioner at the national and then at the subnational level where the project is being implemented. And then that provided us with robust information and findings around where individual organizational capacities are. This is the first time Transform is happening in Nigeria, or the model is being demonstrated in Nigeria. By next year, we will train more persons, like I said, the 100 persons we plan to train across the 4 states. And then we hope that by the end of the project, which is going to be 2027, by August, we would have trained a lot of persons from these 4 states.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. It's nice to see how others have moved along and to learn from them and chart your own path as well. And I like that it's evidence-based. Transform is really about that. Like, look at your own context and see what is needed. There's no one-size-fits-all type of thing. That does not work in Transform. That's not what it's about. So really great to hear these context-specific approaches to address challenges within Malawi and Nigeria today. Thank you both so much, Patience and Emmanuel, for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
The stories from this first conversation were quite profound. A lot of learning from Malawi and journeying with Nigeria. Now let's listen to Thokozani Mtapaonga, who is the principal of Magomero College in Malawi, where Transform is firmly affixed. Really excited to chat with you today. Thokozani, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So, we've heard a lot about Malawi. Our Transform Hub coordinator makes a lot of noise about what we quote institutionalization in Malawi. So, Thokozani, could you please share with us what is going on in Malawi and what does it mean to be institutionalizing the training program Transform?
Thank you so much. Malawi is one of the leading countries in Africa, which has taken several concrete steps to institutionalize, transform. By this, I mean that Malawi has moved beyond just having ad hoc workshops, but embedding transform into national and district social protection systems. Thus, transform is now a part of the country's long-term strategy for strengthening social protection through a coherent, institutionalized system-wide capacity model. Currently, Malawi uses transform as a common language for the whole social protection sector. This is the case because institutionalization began with government itself. Therefore, government considers transform as a routine training which has been embedded in the planning, but also capacity building plans for the country. It is not just a donor-driven one-off event, but it is an initiative owned and led by government. So in aligning to that, government has embedded transform in National Social Protection Capacity Development Framework under what we call the Malawi National Social Support Program, number 2, and of course, the newly launched Malawi National Social Protection Policy of 2024. Using these policy frameworks, Transform is now considered as one key capacity development initiative for government officers, and therefore, training of government staff has happened across multiple levels. At national level, we have Codemaster trainers who have been trained, and also senior government officers who have been trained from Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Finance, and other key ministries. At district level, Transform trainings have been rolled out to cover directors of planning, social welfare officers, disaster risk officers, M&D officers, and other program implementers. All this has been done to ensure that there is a system-wide understanding of social protection principles, but also the transform approach and methodology, not just within one ministry, but all relevant key ministries in social protection. Therefore, we appreciate that in Malawi, almost every district council, you'll find officers who have been trained in program design, targeting, monitoring and evaluation, management information systems, coordination, financing, governance, legal frameworks, and many aspects of transform. And this has happened mostly because in Malawi, we have created a pool of certified national transform trainers. And these were accredited by ILO and regional experts. And this happened with support from ILO, GIZ, UNICEF, and other partners. So as of 2025, Malawi already has got a pool of national local trainers, including 10 lecturers from Magomelo Community Development College who are providing these trainings to district level officers. And you can appreciate that development of local trainers has reduced significantly the cost of transform training by 60%. It has also improved access as so many leaders, actors, and practitioners are able to access the training. And in the long term, we are guaranteed the sustainability of the program. So having local trainers is a major milestone in the institutionalization drive for transform in Malawi because we no longer depend on external consultants. We have a local pool of trainers who are championing and spearheading the implementation of transform in Malawi. And I think another important aspect in this institutionalization drive is that Malawi has integrated transform into a government training institution called Magomelo Community Development College, where I am currently the principal. And therefore, we have moved on to include transform content, methodology, and principles into our diploma curricula in social protection. So the content and everything else that is found in Transform is also found in our diploma in social protection curriculum. And therefore, you can see that institutionalization of Transform reflects Malawi's move towards professionalization of social protection, but also to ensure that we sustain on, but also make sure that we increase access of practitioners to this important training of Transform. So apart from that, you will also notice that in Malawi, Transform has been used as a tool to strengthen subnational systems using a decentralized governance structures where you have got social support committees who are also being trained using the Transform content. And in addition, in Malawi, using our local trainers, Transform is being used to strengthen key areas such as shock-sensitive social protection financing, coordination among ministries, and use of social registry called a unified beneficiary registry. So Transform already is showing that it has got influence in real policy and systems reforms that are taking place here in Malawi. We are using local trainers, we are using local government training institutions, and above all else, there is political will in trying to foster ahead the institutionalization drive in Malawi.
That is so amazing. I'm hearing that there's just a lot of work that's been done over the past several years to really institutionalize, transform at a system-wide approach, right? Using a systematic approach that really engages a government college, which I'm going to ask a little bit more about, but also different levels of government from leaders to implementers. And I think having that pool of master trainers is kind of a trend that we're beginning to see. We spoke to a colleague from Uganda in our first episode, and we heard that they were also going in that direction. So it seems like it's a useful approach in terms of institutionalizing transform. I was wondering if you would share a little bit more about the kind of students or the kind of people who participate or who the Magomero College students are. Who do you envision as the recipients of this training package that is now being embedded in the college? Is it open to everyone or is it specifically for government workers?
That's a very important question. As a government training institution, we have opened up to everyone who is in the social protection sector. But primarily, our first target are the government officers. So we have government councils where you have different departments, Department of Social Welfare, you have social welfare assistants there, you have disaster officers, you have also planners, and so many other officers at the district council. So we have targeted these district officers because these are the ones who are in the forefront in terms of implementation of social protection schemes and instruments. So we have covered over 20 districts already. And there are some who come on short-term basis, but also others who enroll into a one-year certificate or two-year diploma program. This has been done deliberately to ensure that we, first of all, build capacity of government cadres who are implementing cash transfers, school feeding programs, or shock-sensitive nutrition, or in any other interventions that government is implementing in line with the Malawi National Social Support Program, but also the recently approved National Social Protection Policy here in Malawi. Other than that, for sustainability, we have also targeted high school students, and thereafter they get employed either in government or in the CSOs or NGO sector, where there are also interventions in social protection. So the target is both government serving officers, but also the upcoming new professionals who may want to pursue a career in social protection. And the feedback already is quite encouraging and very promising.
I must say, Tokozani, that it's quite exciting to hear that the training is available not only for government workers, but for others who are interested and who work in social protection. It's quite a big agenda that you have there. How has it been? Has it been easy to get this far? What has it taken to get you this far?
It has taken really a number of interventions, but also proactiveness on the part of Magomero Community Development College. You know, social protection has been a virgin ground for quite a long time. So as an institution, we were the ones who pioneered the development of a curriculum in social protection here in Malawi. But having a curriculum on the table was in itself not enough. We had to go out, market the program, reach out to partners, but also to ensure that the government as well as different stakeholders have got a buy-in in social protection. And looking back, I can say that all these interventions have helped us to have a leverage in terms of programming of the social protection curriculum, but also we have managed to get support, for example, from ILO, as well as UNICEF, who came on board to support us in the development of the curriculum, but also the rolling out as well as accreditation of the diploma programs. So I think it takes a lot of proactiveness, but also being futuristic in what you want to achieve. And at the center of it all, coming up with strategies to ensure that whatever program you're coming up with, you have to own it. There has to be ownership, but also you have to put in place building mechanisms for sustainability. So this is what we have done as Malawi, knowing that we can't just do Transform as a workshop, one-off event. We have to embed it in our curriculum so that it is there today, even tomorrow, whether we have donor support or we don't have it available. As long as it is being run by government institution, there is 100% assurance that the program is going to be sustainable.
What an excellent example, I think, of ownership and drive from government. We sometimes give government a hard time, but this is an excellent example of how government really is in the driving seat and knows what they're looking to achieve in the country and are really pushing forward. Any thoughts in terms of what we can look out for to continue to learn from Malawi?
Yeah, I think I would like to present Malawi as a model, but also as a leader, but also as a beautiful case study in terms of how institutionalization can be done in Africa. So I would urge many African countries to create their own national trainers, a pool of national trainers, as the best strategy for them to institutionalize, transform package in their countries. Transform helped us to improve in terms of program financing, but also accountability, issues of M&D, but also issues of management information systems. So you can see people were able to see the real results on the ground, and they adopted Transform because it had a direct impact on what they do in their different sectors. The key lesson here should be training multiple ministries to build a whole of government system, target the whole social protection ecosystem. If we did it in Malawi, I think the whole Africa can also do it. Thank you so much.
That is amazing, actually, Tokozani. Thank you so much for sharing. I actually feel that those points are so important. We need to ensure that we write them down and share them with all the countries that are looking to institutionalize and think that it's too big a feat. It's not. It's a big thing to do. But like you said, if Malawi can do it and they're committed, they can do it too. Thank you so much for joining this podcast today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
If you have not listened to our previous episodes, please do so, as in episode 1, we learned about Uganda's Transform experience, which was also very engaging. But now, where is Transform going? Why is the program so transfixed with institutionalization? Samuel Kapingiza, the AG chair, talks to us about this. Let's have a listen. Previously in this episode, we learned about how Malawi's approach to institutionalization is through training across all districts in the country, and the Transform is embedded in a learning institution. And it was very exciting to talk about that. For Nigeria, they're also just starting, but already planning on how they will institutionalize the initiative in the states where the project is ongoing. So now it will be exciting to talk to Samuel about how the advisory group is providing guidance to the Transform Hub. And we know that the Transform Hub is the entity through which support is provided to different countries. So Samuel, awesome to have you on the Transform podcast today.
It's a pleasure.
So can you tell us a bit about institutionalization? We've been talking about it in this episode. And I think the question we can start with is why institutionalization is critical for sustainability of Transform.
Institutionalization ensures Transform is embedded in national and regional systems, creating ownership and continuity beyond donor cycles. At the country level, this means integrating Transform into civil service training, social protection strategies, and even integrating it in curricula for universities and colleges. And at the regional level, we refer to engaging bodies like the African Union, and this helps harmonize approaches and align with the African social protection agenda. This guarantees that capacity development becomes part of the system, not a one-off intervention. So institutionalization turns Transform from a training program into a governance tool. I know across the continent we have various regional economic communities. We talk about SADC, ECOWAS, the East African community. So we really need to take Transform to all those regional levels, ensure that we inculcate national ownership, regional ownership, and of course, in that way, we're enhancing sustainability.
Oh, you really caught my attention on that one. I love what you said about, through institutionalization, We basically changed Transform from a training program to a governance tool. And how powerful is that, especially for the agencies that you mentioned? That is fantastic. So how will the AG ensure that the approach that's being used across the continent is really kind of up to date, keeping up with the times, and also responsive to the various issues and challenges that the different countries and regions might be facing, which are not unique necessarily to a single country, but also requires consideration of their own context?
So Transform is a living initiative. It evolves with Africa's realities. So the roles of the advisory group are, we make sure that the modules are regularly updated to reflect emerging issues like climate resilience, digitalization, and shock responsive social protection. Another role is we engage regional institutions to align with continental priorities. I mentioned the Africa Social Protection Agenda, and various regions, various regional economic communities, they also have their specific needs, specific contexts, and we also try as much as we can to align to those. We have regions that are prone to conflict. We need to make sure that we align our modules to that context. And of course, we try as much as possible to ensure that we promote innovation through digital platforms and blended learning. So this ensures Transform stays relevant and practical for today's challenges.
Relevant and practical. You mentioned resilience, and that's always a big word in the development space and in social protection. We're trying to build resilience of our communities. How does institutionalizing Transform contribute to achieving resilience building, but also even just meeting the sustainable development goals?
Institutionalizing Transform means investing in systems that deliver on the SDGs. So by embedding Transform into governance structures, countries strengthen capacity to design inclusive social protection systems. And we directly advance SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 10, reduced inequalities, among other SDGs. And we all agree that social protection is a resilience enabler, recovery of the communities, and better preparation, anticipatory preparation and planning. Those all are the roles of social protection towards resilience. So institutionalization also links social protection to climate and crisis response, building resilience and reducing vulnerability. It ensures protection becomes a cornerstone of sustainable development, not a temporary fix.
We know that Transform really provides an opportunity to prepare a country to address poverty, vulnerability, systems issues, as you have raised. Using that intuitive approach is fantastic because you have the knowledge, you have the exposure to the different countries and as well as the region and regional blocks. So it's really worth our partners linking with the hub to learn more about how their country can sustainably build their capacity in social protection at all levels of government and in civil society and academia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It is always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on this platform.
Thank you for joining us for the third episode of the Transform podcast series. I hope your interest in the initiative is fully piqued and you're looking at how to ensure you and your team are trained and start to integrate the Transform in your country. If you missed any of the earlier episodes in this series, you can find them on the Social Protection podcast feed, available on all major podcast platforms or directly on the socialprotection.org website. Transform is an interagency initiative coordinated by the International Labour Organization. The Transform Hub is funded by Irish Aid and is based in Zambia. You can learn more about Transform and its partners, reach out to the Hub and explore the training materials on the website transformsp.org.